Hi, I'm Terry Wilson, Looking Under Rocks Limited, leaving no stones unturned. People probably wonder why I'm putting all this stuff upon YouTube concerning reptilians or reptoids, whatever you want to call them, or serpents, as in opposition to what proclaims to be Christianity. Well, you see, the church system in the world, in the Western world, has a very strong propaganda, what I would call machinery. It has a method of blocking out anything that is opposed to its doctrines and teachings. I was a member of this Christian community, a pastor, in fact, a preacher. Then one day I just woke up and I saw what was going on, and I began to perceive what was happening. And the moment I began to talk about it, the standard operational procedure of what calls itself the church swung into action and quickly began to manipulate the people in the churches or those under its control into accepting the belief that I was satanic, I was a false prophet, I was a false teacher, I was dangerous, don't listen to him, stay away from him, you know the whole works. This is a standard operational procedure that the church system has to keep people captive within its system, that they will not incline their ear to any other viewpoint. We can call this an introduction to the religion of the reptile, which I have heavily researched and dug up, you could say, and looked into, and I found out to be a very strong element of truth in the information which I obtained, and of course by the level of resistance and the level of the standard operational procedure that was used by the church against my family, against the twisting of the truth. The fact is, they could never ever come, sit down with me with their so-called Bible and show me where and how I have gone wrong. And if so, I would have gladly become corrected. But no, I was instantly subject to a tyrannical reign of victimization, a tyrannical reign of absolute shunning, which is totally unbiblical in its own nature. I have learned through experience not to listen to what man says God has said, because they put their own leanings upon the Bible. No one in the church will allow you, I don't care what church it is or what professing church, let me say, will allow you to individually and independently study the Bible and allow the Bible to teach you by its own merits. No individual interpretation of the Bible is permitted. You know, hundreds of years ago, men who tried to interpret the Bible from the Latin language into the common language of the men were imprisoned. Look at the story of John Wycliffe or Wycliffe. What the church did to him, they imprisoned him. Look what the church did to John Bunyan, the writer of Pilgrim's Progress. So these were men who allowed themselves to sit under the teachings of the Bible by its own merit and not via the interpretations of what man says God has said. Am I the enemy of God? Not at all. Am I the enemy of Christ? Not at all. But I am the enemy of those that profess to know God but know nothing about him. Most of these people who profess to know God would not know him if he walked up behind them and bit them on the backside. They wouldn't even know him. because the God they worship is the God of their own imaginings, their own constructions, where instead of feeding the sheep, they feast upon the sheep. The story goes on and on and on. So before you begin to wipe me off as a nutcase, which I probably am, listen to what I have to say, follow the segments of the reptilian religion of the reptile, which I'm still making, by the way, and put it together, because all I'm simply doing is examining what the Bible teaches upon its own merit. Now, the serpent, for instance, there are a lot of fables, a lot of false teaching. Where's the apple mentioned in the book of Genesis with Adam and Eve? There's no apple. You know, I can go on and on and on. The so-called three wise men at the birth of Christ. There wasn't three wise men. They weren't wise men. There weren't three gifts. There were three types of gifts mentioned in the Bible. But you see, these three men, where did they come from? At the birth of Christ, so to speak. The apple in the Garden of Eden, where did that come from? It definitely does not come from the Bible. When you begin to individually study the Bible in its root languages, mainly Aramaic, you will begin to learn things totally contrary to what the preacher will teach you. In the words of the old song, it ain't necessarily so. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, let's move on to part one of the reptilian religion. I